Hey, this is Ed Rigsby, and we're here with another virtual speakers showcase. Now, as y'all know, the all of the speakers that participate this year in 2023 will become inductees. I'm sorry, they won't become inductees; they'll become nominees for the 2023 Virtual Speakers Hall of Fame. And you, the association execs that are watching this, you get to choose on who gets to be inductees. At the end of the year, you'll get a email specific opportunity to vote. You can vote for up to 5, and that'll determine who this year, at the end of the year, will become the 2023 inductee into the Speakers Hall of Fame. So I want to kick this thing off today. Let's talk about our first speaker. Through his career, Scott Cooksey has worked with leaders across North America, the Caribbean, Australia, and the Middle East, delivering workshops, keynotes, and executive coaching sessions. Whether in person or as a live virtual presenter, Cooksey offers thoughtful perspectives to audiences in a conversational style, often leaving them with practical, easy to implement concepts designed to get them in position to win. Position to win. Love that. His experience helping business professionals unleash breakaway success includes working with teams in finance, manufacturing, energy, oil and gas, aerospace, electronics, SaaS, software as a service, and organizations just like yours. Please welcome Scott Cooksey.
I want you to imagine you're at the starting line of the race of your life. You're on a bike, and in fact, let's have some fun. You're at the Tour de France, the biggest cycling event of the entire world. You've spent thousands of miles in the saddle getting ready for this event, hundreds of races that you've competed in. You've spent countless nights and days studying the course, getting ready with the strategy with your team, all to get ready for this moment. And here you are. The butterflies are absolutely going bananas in your stomach, but you can taste the competition in the air and you are ready. So the race unfolds, it starts underway, and you, along with the rest of the peloton, begin rolling out at the beginning of that race. After several miles, you settle into a cadence and a little bit of what starts to feel like what's going to be pretty normal for the next 3 weeks of your life as you work your way toward the city of Paris. After riding for a while, it's time for you to go to work. You have a mission today, and your mission is to go to the side of the road, grab a bag of food from someone standing there, come back to the group, and pass the food and water bottles out to the others on your squad. So you do just that. You've trained for this. You've done it many times over. You grab the bag, you're headed back to the group, and then suddenly you find yourself laying on the road. Your strategy for the day as you planned it, much like in business, got hit by something out of a total surprise. And now it's up to you to figure out what to do. Now, I want to take a minute and step back, and let's break down a minute about why I talk about the Tour de France, because I found that riding a bike is not that different than the way you run a business. I mean, we kind of know what to do, but let's stop and think about this. And let's put it in the context of maybe what you think of as a winner. I'm thinking of a winner that's won the Tour 7 times. Nope, not that guy, right? But I know who you're thinking about. You're thinking about that rider that won the yellow jersey 7 times. The yellow jersey represents the rider that gets from the beginning to the end of the race across all 21 stages. By the way, it's not one big race, it's 21 smaller races put together. But that rider that gets across all 21 stages with the lowest cumulative time wins the yellow jersey. And we often think that's the only way to win the Tour. But that's simply not the case. One of my favorite riders is a 7-time winner of the Tour, a guy named Peter Sagan. Sagan has won the green jersey 7 times. What's the green jersey, you ask? Well, the green jersey is there for the best sprinter. And sprinters, much like in your business or the companies and your experiences you've had in your life, where you've needed a short burst of energy to hit a short-term goal, and then you could sort of drop back with everybody else and tool along for a while until the next opportunity comes to pass. And as you hit those short-term wins, those sprints, you pick up points that accumulate you can win the green jersey. Maybe though you're thinking about people in your organization, or maybe this is you. You're not so good on a sprint, but you're the one that seems to do the hard work, the heavy lifting. You have the grit, the determination to do the really hard stuff nobody else can do. When the most elite riders are suffering trying to get up a hill with an 8, 10, 12% grade, you are continuing to move toward the summit in a way that other riders just simply don't have the legs to do. We need those kings of the mountain in our organization too, to get us through those really difficult times, because there's something very rewarding. And I can tell you, as a 6'3" speaker that really stands nicely on a stage, I'm a big fan of the downhill. It's coming off the backside of the summit that I enjoy the most, to celebrate the fact that we got over the top first. As you look throughout organizations, we also need to be thinking about, how are we getting our up and coming talent ready? And those, my friends, are the riders that can win the white jersey. Now, we could go on about some of the other things that happen in the race, but I think you're starting to get the picture. Because so often in organizations, I hear, who is the best person on our team? We need to replicate an entire team of them. No, you don't. Because there are times when the unexpected happens, times that you need that sprinter to go forward and win, times that you need that mountain climber to just psychologically get in the mind of your competitor and let them know that you're not going to stop no matter what. So let's go back to that race for a minute. Because the winner that I'm thinking about, you already know. In fact, you've already heard his story, because I put you in that story this morning. When I talked about that rider that went down in the feed zone, that was Lawson Craddock in the 2018 Tour de France. Lawson's a rider from Houston, Texas. He was riding in his first tour, much fanfare, on Team Education First. They had these bright pink jerseys that year. It was really fantastic. Everybody wanted to see how Lawson was going to do. His dream was just to finish all 21 stages so that he could ride up and down the Champs-Élysées on that last day of the tour and celebrate a race completed. That was all he needed to do. In fact, his role on the team was not to win anything. He played the role of a domestique, a rider who's there to help other riders play out their strategy. If you have a mechanical problem and the team car can't get there with a replacement, you take their bike. You need to get food, you send Lawson back to the car to get more food or water bottles and bring it back to you, so you can maintain a steady pace that allows you to continue on your own race. It takes the entire squad. Lawson, when he went to go get that food bag, was coming back to the group, hit a water bottle that had bounced off of a competitor's bicycle, and the rest was history. He hit the tarmac going full speed, broke his collarbone and the orbital socket around his eye. And his dream went from finish the race to, is he going to finish today? In fact, he did finish that first day. And then he came back the second day. And then it came out that he said, you know what, every day that I come out to ride again, I'm going to put $100 in a fund that is going to raise money for the track that I learned how to ride as a kid. Because he knew he needed something to motivate him, to keep him centered, that he could focus on while everyone around him was trying to help him heal and get better so that he could continue to serve the team. And the team rallied around that effort to just help Lawson get through the race. So he came back in day 2, day 3, day 5, day 12. He just kept coming back and coming back and coming back. And in the process, he won over the hearts and minds of the fans, of his fellow riders on his squad, of his sponsors. Because you see, the goal of a cycling team is not necessarily to win every single day, but to put that team name, and the team name, by the way, is your biggest sponsor, on the podium every day to give them the exposure. That's winning. We want to put you in position to win. Lawson won everybody over to a place that others decided they were going to put some money in the bucket with him. So they opened a digital fund on GoFundMe. And by the end of the race, Lawson had raised 6 figures worth of cash that he was able to donate back to the track where he won as a kid. I can't tell you what's going to happen in your business, but I can tell you this. You don't want only one kind of rider on your squad. You need mechanics, you need a team chef, you need medical staff, you need everybody that can help you put it all together. Because what you're looking for is breakaway success. And what you need is a strategy that will keep you in position to win.
Scott, thanks so much. Really appreciate that. I love the analogy of winning with the Tour de France. Well, let's look at our next speaker for today. He will share his ideas on how people like you can move from self-limiting beliefs and blind spots and build self-esteem and create an empowering vision of where you want to go. And just to clarify, he loves people, but no, he's not actually winking at you. Please join me in welcoming a leader that doesn't quit and won't let you either. I give you Brian Wagner.
Imagine you wake up tomorrow morning to total darkness. You go to flip on the light switch and nothing seems to happen. You turn towards the mirror and you can see a sliver of light coming out of the bottom of your eyes. So the power is on. This was my situation. My wife heard the commotion and she came downstairs, and I'll never forget her. She was totally distraught at what she'd seen. My face was swollen about twice the size, and my eyelids wouldn't open. So here's where you've got to determine that this has probably never happened to you. So why am I telling you the story? I'm telling you the story because we've all had situations in our life where we've had to deal with bad stuff. Bad things happen. We've had a diagnosis or a disability or whatever the case may be. And understanding that happens to all of us is the first step. So as soon as we were able to, we rushed to the ER. And there, after hours and hours of waiting and hours of tests, as you can imagine, the doctor came in and he said, "Mr. Wagner, it appears as though the cavitous malformation in your brainstem, a cavitous malformation, or a cav mal, if you will, has bled and it's putting pressure on the nerves that control your vision. We're recommending that you have brain surgery." Brain surgery? Wait a minute. They told me never let someone operate on my brainstem. What's changed? Well, the problems you have are only going to become worse and more frequent. Worse and more frequent. Worse. I was blind and it was going to get worse. Well, that's my story. I went blind. I have a speech impediment. I have numbness on the right side of my body. I walk with a cane. I have I don't drive. All this. But that's my story. And you have your story as well, because you don't quit. Leaders don't quit. Now, as we went on, this reminded me of my days back at IBM. When I was blind to what I was doing there, I had no idea. But I realized after going through this long process where I was able to learn more, and to be able to take more on, we had a big opportunity where we worked on, and we got this customer to a point where we thought that he was going to purchase this storage equipment from us, but he didn't end up doing that because in the briefing center, I failed. I didn't prepare. So that's similar to me being blind. I didn't know I needed to prepare. I didn't know that I needed to do the work up front. Well, if I did the work up front, we would have had a better chance to win. But I didn't win. Back to that surgery, back to that ER, where the doctor came in and told me that I need to have brain surgery. I was blind. I'm like, well, okay, we'll do whatever you say. So when I went and had brain surgery, and when I came back, I thought everything was going to get back to normal. I thought everything was going to get back to the way it was. My daughter, she told me that I was still her dad. She wrote me this Father's Day letter that year. She was 13 years old at the time. 13 years old. And she wrote me this letter for Father's Day. She said, "Dear Dad, Happy Dad's Day." Oh, and by the way, I don't read it anymore because it's too hard to read. But Happy Dad's Day. I hope you have a great day because you definitely deserve it. All the cars and TV commercials always say, "My dad's the best." But they're all lying. You're the best ever. Sure, other people's dads are great. They're younger than you, and they're sportier, and they're funner. Okay, much like you, at this point of the letter, I'm beginning to wonder where the good stuff comes. But she goes on. But you've got something that they don't have. Bravery. Even after everything you've been through, you still go to bed in the morning. You still joke around and play with us and cook on the grill. Even though you only have half of one good eye. But you do more still. You teach me. You teach me that even though you go through the toughest, most grueling things, that if you just believe that God is right there with you through everything. Believe that everything turns out okay in the end. You'll make it alive. Not always unscathed, but alive. And give me that hope, that sense of belief. Well, I'd take that over a dad with two good eyes any day. Love, 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 Jess. When's the last time you received a letter like that? I got a better question. When's the last time you wrote a letter like that? Well, that's my challenge for you today, is to write that letter. Remember, to think about that one person that you needed, because I needed that specialist in Phoenix, Arizona, where I went and had brain surgery. I needed him. He was the guy. Who do you need at certain times? Who do you need to help you be more resilient? That is that person that you want to write that letter to. And then tell them who they are. Tell them to stop comparing themselves to other people. Like my daughter told me. She told me who I was, who I needed to be. She told me that I don't quit. And she told me that I'm a leader, and leaders don't quit. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. I appreciate that. You know, Brian, I can see how you will make sure that people don't give up and don't quit. Thanks so much. Our next speaker, as a TEDx speaker, trainer, and coach, Kathy's real-world lessons are forged from her unique personal experiences as an individual who has overcome destructive generational challenges of violence, alcoholism, and addiction. Despite being ill-educated, Kathy went on to grow many skills, becoming a corporate leader and entrepreneur, goals she once thought were unobtainable. As a resiliency expert, Kathy uses her experiences to teach her audiences the same building blocks that helped her to persevere and achieve her goals despite the odds. Her motto is, "If I can win my fight with the odds stacked against me, so can you." I give you Kathy James.
What if I told you that life was like one big boxing match? And how many of you would agree that sometimes it feels like life is sucker punching us in the gut? I've been there. Growing up, I loved to play with Barbie dolls. I had the Barbie Jeep, the Barbie camper, and the Barbie pool with the slide, but Malibu Barbie was my absolute favorite. I also woke up early on Saturdays to watch cartoons like Thundercats. On the outside, I was just like any other young girl that was born in the early 80s, except my life was far from normal. You see, both of my parents were addicted to drugs. By the time I was 13, my mother had taken to prostitution, and I hid that my body was invaded when I was 6 years old. Raging anger would take over every aspect of my life, and as you can imagine, I would start to follow a similar destructive path, as statistically I would, becoming a teen mother and a borderline alcoholic by 19 years old. I lived in a soup of negativity for years, seeing no end in sight, but thankfully there was. With the help of some amazing individuals, I changed my path. I succeeded in not only breaking generational cycles, but over time, I gained a deep passion for fighting for and succeeding in my personal goals. I became a successful corporate leader, and today I help men and women persevere in their goals also. During some personal reflection, I thought back and I examined all of the difficult times and the moments of growth that shaped me to who I am today. And I discovered in every single pivotal moment of growth from then until now, that there were several foundational building blocks that contributed to the moments I was most resilient and most successful. These same truths helped me not to only get by, but to learn from, grow from, and win despite the odds. These pillars are now a permanent part of my personal and professional resiliency plan. These same simple steps allowed me to remain vigilant when I decided I no longer wanted to rely on government assistance, when I wanted to develop as a trusted leader, and again, when I decided I would become a first-time homeowner as a single mama. Today, I will share 3 of these foundational pillars with you. These foundational building blocks will help you harness unbreakable resilience, no matter the goal or the circumstance. Let's dive in. Pillar resiliency number 1, identify your opponent. Who is your opponent? Many times we learn that we are staring in the mirror at the very person we are standing up against. Well, what do I mean by that? Well, for me, I had to realize I was the only person standing in my way of improving my situation. And I have faced the same reality multiple times over since. I avoided my pains, masked my fears with rage, never taking accountability for my own actions. I was sucker punching myself by remaining stagnant and doing nothing at all. I had become complacent, never recognizing the dangers of my self-destructive habits and the risks of remaining idle. For many, the opposite is true, often spinning their wheels, feeling as if they're going nowhere. To reiterate pillar number 1, who was standing in your way of success today? Not yesterday, today. I'll tell you, it's not your boss. And no, it's not your mother-in-law, although she may be a leading contender. It's also not your past or your current circumstance. It's you. I know that might hurt because it definitely did for me. But the good news is you have the power to change the narrative. You and only you. And here's some more good news. You don't have to go about it alone. Champions don't win championships on their own. This brings me to pillar number 2. You need an entourage. When I look back on all of the times in my life that I was able to remain the most resilient, I look back and I don't just see Kathy. I see my entourage. I see those same people that aided me on my healing journey, my career journey, and that are helping me today as an entrepreneur and aspiring author. I see my corner men and my corner women, my mentors and my coaches. My mentors became my sanctuary in between my physical battles on the mat. During each interval of being hit in the face or the gut, either by myself or by life, my corner man provided me with what I needed to re-strengthen for the next round. I also see my sparring partners. These individuals pushed me and challenged me to my best potential. Your sparring partner should be someone that is honest, trustworthy, non-judgmental, and is someone that it will tell you what you need to hear and not just what you want to hear, even if it hurts. Last but not least, my third and final resiliency pillar for today is training and conditioning. My entourage played a major role in my training and conditioning. Well, what kind of training are we talking about, Kathy? Don't worry, I don't expect anyone to train like Rocky if I can't, and I can't. But I am encouraging that you learn from the best. Did you know that film study is a training technique often used in many championship sports? In this approach, the coach and the fighter, the athlete, will study not only the challenger's punches, footwork, and other patterns, but they will also study films of themselves. So what are they searching for? Strengths and weaknesses, of course. Can you guys see where I'm going with this? If you were the only person standing in your way of success, and Kathy already said that you were, then you need to therefore study your own habits, patterns, and thinking to get to the next level. It doesn't matter if it's your weight loss or your relationships or your career. You must become students of self. Whatever it is that you are facing at home, in the workplace, or whatever you desire the most, here's what you do to remain diligent, resilient, and to win. Number one, recognize avoidance, complacency, and overwhelm will keep you on the canvas. When you aren't fighting for yourself, you're contending against yourself. Number two, champions don't fight alone. They surround themselves with an entourage, the right movers, shakers, experience, and backing that will elevate them to champion levels. And number three, condition your mind. Study your own habits through meditation, self-reflection, and regular feedback from peers. Ask yourself, what do I value? What am I willing to fight for? It's a challenge, because if I can win my fight with these odds stacked against me, so can you.
Thank you, Kathy. I kind of sit here and want to say, you go, girl, you go. I see the book in the background, Girl Fight, and maybe people could look into that. Appreciate what you had to say, Kathy, and let's face it, it's not always easy to overcome our circumstances. It's always easy to blame others. Well, let's change gears a little bit and let's introduce our next speaker. Our next speaker is Janice Litvin, the Banish Burnout Queen. She does this at corporate events as well as association conferences. And she even does this when she leads Zumba fitness classes. Let's welcome Janice Litvin.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Ed. Good morning, everyone. Through my work with burnout, I've come to realize there are two key sources of stress and burnout. It can come either from ourselves in the way we react or overreact to stressors, or it can come from a boss who expects us to burn the candle at both ends. Either way, we find ourselves overworked, overstressed, and sadly burned out. So I'm here today to share with you how to banish burnout. Let's jump right in. Do you ever have a stressful day? Does every day seem like a stressful day? How often do you feel stressed out? Well, let's picture this typical day. You wake up and you get a 911 text right away, first thing in the morning, from someone on your team. One of your venues has flooded, and that's for your event next week. Oh my gosh, now what are we going to do? The plan for your day, actually for your week, has completely gone out the window. You have knots in your stomach, and now you have a headache, and you throw your clothes on and start rushing to your office. On the way, you think, wow, I really could use a big, strong cup of coffee. So you stop at your favorite coffee shop, but of course there's a really long line. And you know those crazy customers. How many calories are in the chocolate croissant? And you're tearing your hair out like, come on, people, let's get going. I've got to get to work. So you go on about your day, having meetings and phone calls and texts and emails. I don't have to tell you all the things you have to do to solve the problem of finding a new venue. You finish your day eventually 6, 7, 8, 9 o'clock, go home, have dinner with the family. And after dinner, you think, oh gosh, I've got to get one more email done for my favorite special exhibitor who really supports us at every conference. I got to make sure they understand exactly what to do. So I sit down at my computer and you start typing away, and you get into the flow. Has that ever happened where you start working and you lose all track of time? Suddenly you think, well, what time is it? Tick tock, it's midnight. It's time to go to bed. So you shut down your computer, you get in bed, but you can't fall asleep right away because you haven't given yourself the space between your work time and your downtime. You haven't really decompressed, especially from this crazy day. Eventually you fall asleep, but you don't have a good night's sleep, and the whole cycle starts all over again tomorrow. Does this sound familiar? Does any scenario like this sound familiar? Do you run around solving, putting out all these different fires every day and having these crisis kind of feelings in your body, in your head, in your mind and your body? So I'll ask you again, how often do you feel stressed out? Well, when I ask association and conference audiences this question, the average response is 75.3% of the time. I don't know where the 0.3 came from. Let's just call it 75%. So 3/4 of the time, people are feeling stressed out. That's just too much darn stress. And I know it can come from so many places. We're all, especially for you meeting planners, there's always stress, isn't it? It can come from a flood in a venue. It can come from an exhibitor who's not meeting their deadlines. Or it can come from worrying about Rihanna. When is she going to release her next album? Oh my gosh. But seriously, stress is always around, isn't it? And the problem is we take it all in, but we don't have a way to get it all out. And so we erupt into the big B, burnout. Now, we can't stop all these stressful things from happening, but what we can do is we can change the way we react from the inside out. And so my goal today is to show you how to change your behavior with my most valuable tool in my Banish Burnout Toolkit, and that is called setting healthy boundaries. Let's jump in. Have you ever said yes to something and regretted it later? Are you the kind of person that says yes a lot of the time? I mean, I was brought up to, when a friend asks for help, of course you say yes, because they're a friend. But sometimes it gets to be too much. Like, my neighbor wants me to help them with their garage sale at 7 o'clock Saturday morning. No, why did I say yes to that? And so today I'm going to teach you a couple of ways to change your reaction and learn how to say no without saying no. And all my tools and scripts are in my book, which you're all going to get a copy of at the end. So here's one example. Someone asks you to do something and you really don't have time. I'm sorry. I wish I could. I can't. I'm so sorry. No extra talking, no explaining, because the more you explain, the more they're going to try to counter your arguments. You don't have to go to Target now. You can go next week. No explaining. I'm sorry. I wish I could. I can't. I'm so sorry. Now, if this is a good friend that you've been saying yes to for years and you never say no, but you wish you could, they're going to get angry at first. They're going to argue back. But if you hang tough and repeat, I'm so sorry, I wish I could, I can't, they're going to get the hint eventually. And they may stomp away mad, but they'll come back. And if they don't come back, that's not a friend you really want in your life. Now, what about at work? Are you allowed to say no at work? And I know as meeting planners, how busy you are, and you're all on a very busy team trying to get a lot of things done. But where's the limit? Is it fair to ask you to work till 10 o'clock every single night? Every night of the week? Every week of the month? Not really. We don't want you to burn out. So how do you say no without saying no? So someone comes to you, the executive director comes to you and says, oh, we have this great idea for our annual conference. We want you to start an emerging leader division. And all of a sudden you're panicking. Oh my gosh, that's not so simple. There's so many roving pieces. How do you say no without saying no? I'm excited to work on this new event. Which of my other projects would you like me to move so I can join you on the new event? which of my other projects would you like me to move so I can join you on this new event? That's saying, no, I don't have time without saying no. You don't have to get angry. You can stay calm and rational. And you can say, which of my other projects would you like me to move so I can join you on this new event? Simple, clear. And that puts the onus back on them to find you more resources or give that to someone else. So there you have it. My best tool for banishing burnout is setting healthy boundaries. And I hope I've given you the momentum to start banishing burnout in your life. Today, I'm gifting you a PDF copy of my book, Banish Burnout Toolkit, and try to snap a picture of this screen, use the QR code or the link, janicelitvin.com/resources-book, and I will put that in the chat in case you don't have time to get that now. Thank you so much, everyone. Back to you, Ed.
Thank you, Janice. I appreciate that. Yes, setting healthy boundaries. Yeah, I don't know that that's one of my super strengths. I guess we'll have to talk about how I can quit saying yes to everybody. I guess a lot of us have that challenge. So, Janice, thank you very much. Well, let's move to our next speaker, who is our last presenter before the summary. Mark Stiving. He, as a matter of fact, not in the intro, but I had him on my association chief staff executive, the CEO call that I do every Tuesday a few weeks ago, and they really got a lot out of it. So I even put the presentation up at ASAE, so in the CEO forum. So there's more of Mark if you want it. So let's get to Mark's intro. Your members participate in your association to build their business. For 30 years, Mark has been helping large and small companies grow their profits through value-based pricing. He has written 3 books on pricing, has a PhD in pricing, and hosts a successful podcast on pricing. In the next 8 minutes, Mark will share one big idea that can accelerate your members' profitability. Easy for me to say. I give you Mark Stiving.
Value-based pricing is the most profitable pricing strategy any company or association can adopt. Value-based pricing is a really easy concept to understand. It means charge what your customers are willing to pay. It's almost impossible to do perfectly. And that's because you can't read your customers' minds. But what we can do is focus on how they perceive the value of our product. And the more we understand value, the more we understand the way they think about value, the closer we can come to executing value-based pricing. One framework that I use a lot, and it is extremely powerful when understanding how our buyers value our products, is will I and which one? Will I buy something in this product category? And then which one am I going to go buy? For example, let's assume that you're not in the marketplace for a new refrigerator right now, and that's probably a pretty easy assumption to make. And yet tomorrow morning, you walk down to the kitchen, there's water all over the floor underneath the refrigerator. The ice is melted out of the freezer. You open the door and the food is warm. It's no longer healthy to eat. You call a refrigerator repairman. They show up and says, this is going to be expensive to fix. And so you decide you need to go buy a new refrigerator. You just said yes to the will I decision. What do you do next? Well, you go to Home Depot or Lowe's or Appliance Warehouse. You start looking at different brands of refrigerators. You look at different technologies. Do you want the freezer on the top or the freezer on the bottom? Do you want the 2 doors or the single door? Do you want the ice in the door or not? And each one of these decisions, you're looking at what's the price of that? Because price becomes a really important factor when we're making that which one decision. Now, the reason this is such an important concept is because when people only make the will I decision, they aren't price sensitive. Price isn't driving that decision. And there are many circumstances where people are only making a will I decision. We just have to learn to recognize them or to create them. So for example, bungee jumping. Who's been bungee jumping? So I can't see you, but I'm going to assume one or two people have said, yeah, I've been bungee jumping. I went bungee jumping. I was in Queensland, New Zealand at the Shotover River. It cost me $150. Now, if you were to ask me, did I compare any competitive alternatives? Was I thinking about going somewhere else to go bungee jumping, or was it just this place? And I would tell you it was just this place. This was a will I decision. I said yes, and I never went on to look at competitive alternatives. So then you're probably curious. I paid $150. Would I have paid 200? Yeah. How about 250? Starting to get expensive. 300? Yeah, probably not. The point here is price wasn't driving my decision. They could have increased the price and I still would have gone bungee jumping. Now imagine for a moment that you happen to be a really good friend of mine. You're standing right there next to me in New Zealand, Queensland at the Shotover River. It's $150 to go bungee jumping. Who's going with me? And I'm guessing I just got a few of you to say yes, but most of you said no. And so what if it was 125? Would you go? How about 100? How about 75? Yeah, most of you didn't change your mind. And here's why. Price isn't driving that decision. Something else was driving that decision. We want to learn how we can create situations and products where people aren't comparing us to competitive alternatives, because then the decision isn't about price. The decision is all about what's the value of solving the problem. We can break this down into two flavors. Let's call one the will I situations and the other one will I products. Will I situations are those situations where we have a product that's normally competitive, but we find it in a situation where competitive alternatives are not considered. So imagine that you're driving out in the middle of nowhere. You see the sign on the side of the road that says last gas 75 miles, glance down at the fuel gauge and it says 1/8 of a tank of gas. You pull over to get gas and the price of the gas is 4 times the price what it is in the city. Are you buying gas? Heck yes. Because you're making a will I decision. There's no competitive alternative. This is a will I situation. But sometimes we have products where people only consider our product and don't consider competitive alternatives. My favorite example of this is the iPhone. If you are currently an iPhone user, I am guessing that you're thinking to yourself, should I upgrade to the new iPhone or not? What you're not thinking is, should I upgrade to the new iPhone or switch to Android? It's Apple or nothing. So the iPhone is really a will I product. And this is why Apple gets to charge such high prices compared to Samsung and other Android manufacturers. In fact, Android mobile phones in the worldwide marketplace have 72% market share, which is huge. On the other hand, Apple mobile phones or Apple iPhones in the worldwide marketplace have 85% profit share. Apple makes all the profit, even though Samsung and other Android manufacturers make most of the phones. If I could advise you to do anything, it would be to be more like Apple. See if you can create or find will I products. See if you can create or find will I situations. Will I and which one is just one of the frameworks that help us understand how our customers truly perceive the value of our products, implying their willingness to pay. If you want your members to be able to grow their profitability rapidly, give me a call. Now, go make an impact.
Thank you, Mark. I appreciate that. Well, I'm not one of those Apple phone users, so I'll just go to Woot and look for the best deal on the next Samsung version. I'm unfortunately not the best client in that situation. But I found it very, very interesting, Mark, that a lot of the things that you talk to the association executives about on with my group really hit hard, especially things in subscription membership, things that association people, not just for their members, but for the association itself. So we have to change gears. Now I get the pleasure of bringing on my good friend, Dale Irvin. But before I do that, I want to let you know that Dale, because he always chides me for forgetting to bring this up, he is one of the inaugural members of the Virtual Speakers Hall of Fame. And some other little factoid that most people don't know about Dale, and it has nothing to do with his work as a professional summarizer, but since the beginning of the Cigar Peg Philanthropy Through Fun, he has been one of the strongest, loudest supporters of our charity and what we've done and how we create value. And the Cigar Peg Philanthropy Through Fun is the organization that hosts the Virtual Speakers Hall of Fame and the showcases. So let me give you a treat, and Dale will tell you basically what maybe you didn't hear, but what the speakers told you. Dale, it's all yours.
Thank you, Ed. And let me just start off by saying it's pronounced inaugural. Inaugural is the right way. Anyhow, I am the world's only professional summarizer, as you see here. What happens is I will sit through your meeting. I will look at all the speakers, I will observe all the events, and then periodically through the day, I will give everybody a summary, an update, a recap of what just happened in the form of a comedy monologue that I write on the spot. So that being said, let me just give you a brief summary of the speakers we've heard today. We started out with Scott Cooksey, and Scott's introduction, I think he has spoken on just about every continent. So if you have a meeting coming up in Antarctica, Scott's the guy to call, and he can complete the set. That would be nice.
Yes.
And then he told us to imagine that we're on a bike in the Tour de France, and I'm going along with this. I'm imagining that, and the first thing I'm thinking is, this seat hurts like hell. This is not a good place to be. And then you wind up falling on the road and landing right on your groceries. And I said, you don't have to win to get a yellow jersey. You can win the green jersey and dye it yellow. And then, there you go. And then he talked about the guy named Lawson who broke his collarbone and still finished the race. And he said that the one thing that the sponsors want to see is their name on that yellow jersey on the podium. And I'm thinking, okay, here's the perfect name for your next company, Yellow Jersey. It will be mentioned constantly throughout the race. So there you go. Then next we heard from Brian Wagner with the feel-good story of the year. Holy Christmas, man. you have gone through a lot. And he said, imagine, he said, this is going to happen to us all. It's never happened to me, but I've had just a brief tinge of it one time. I was taking a shower, and I was in the showers listening to a portable radio. And as I was shut my eyes to rinse the small amount of shampoo I needed in my hair, the power went out. I can still feel the water. I can still hear the radio, but now I think that I've gone blind. And that would, to have it really happen, man, that's got to be triply spooky. Anyhow, with such a touching story, Brian, I got to tell you that you are about to receive the very rarely awarded Get Out of Dale free card, because
You've gone through enough. You don't need any of me. Besides, I got a letter to write.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Then we heard from Kathy James, who's a TEDx speaker. And I got to tell you, I really don't know who TEDx is, unless maybe he's related to Malcolm X, who in fact himself was a very good speaker. And she said, life is one big boxing match. So we got to try and figure out how to get out of that box. And then she goes on her story from Malibu Barbie to yet another feel-good story about a horrible younger life. Thank you for that. But she had 3 points that she wanted to bring up. First of all, identify your opponent by looking in the mirror. And then you sucker punch yourself, but don't break the mirror, because that's another 7 years bad luck. And then you need an entourage, also, called roadies, homies, gophers. You need a bunch of sycophants around you, really, to help you get along. And then finally, for training and conditioning, take up boxing, my training and I got one of those Fitbit things, and I tied it to the wheel on my gerbil's cage, and I go about 20,000 steps a day. Janice Litvin, talking about conditioning. Janice is used to lead Zumba classes, which I don't really know what that is. I'm assuming it's something done on the internet, and it concerns a robot vacuum. So I don't know, but it's got to be fun to watch. And then she said she'd go to the coffee shop and tear her hair out, which explains how one of them got in my coffee. And then she said you get so stressed out and you can't fall asleep at night. No, you've had too much coffee. And 75% of us feel stressed out because they have to write jokes on the spot about what's happening. What I did there. All right. And then she said, have you ever said yes and regretted it later? That refers to all forms of yes, including I do.
Oh.
And so to avoid saying yes, her tip is really just lie, and she said, can you say no at work? Yes, you can say no. Just say no. It was a big movement, but you got to fool them. So there you go on that. Finally, we heard from Mark Stiving, who is all about pricing. So when you hire him to speak, expect to pay full price. And he said, you have to charge what your customers are willing to pay. That's value-based pricing. But let's say you got a refrigerator, it's working fine, and overnight, you had a crappy refrigerator if all the water's on the floor overnight, because they hold the cold for a little while. But anyhow, you need a new refrigerator now in a hurry because the beer is getting warm. And then he went bungee jumping. He went bungee jumping for $150. And he said if it was $300, he probably wouldn't do it. And then he asked how many of us would do it for $150? How many would do it for $75? How many would do it for $50? And he said that something else is driving that decision, not the price. No, it's called fear of dying. I don't want to pay any money if the chances are I ain't coming back. And then finally, he told us to be more like Apple. Take your product and overcharge for it. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you are looking for an extra bonus in your meeting, call me, talk to me, the professional summarizer. I add something special to every meeting, and every speech is different. Thanks for watching us today. I'll turn it back over to Ed for the closing prayer.
Thank you, Dale. I appreciate that. Here is the closing prayer. I would encourage all association executives to go to Virtual Speakers Hall of Fame /directory, where in a couple days, everybody that you saw today, their video will be up. They will have their own page. And all of the other people over the last few years that we have been doing the Virtual Speakers Hall of Fame, you can also watch their videos. You can watch it 24/7. So I would encourage every association executive, every meeting planner, go to Virtual Speakers Hall of Fame /directory, bookmark that page, and whenever you need a speaker, go there first. Thank you very much. It's been a wonderful time, and we'll see you again in 2 months. Bye now.